Greetings, friends. Greetings, salutations, and welcome back once again to the Sunday Sermon with Reverend Riff. I am Reverend Riff. I'll be your host this morning, and thank you so much for being here. Thank you for the love on the shirt bail. Mrs. Riff picked this one out, so she'll be glad to hear that you liked it. We got a lot to talk about today, so we're going to get right into it. But just a few housekeeping items first. This is our 8th Sunday sermon. Somehow we have, I don't know how we've done this for 8 weeks, but we have. And I am so thrilled that you've all joined me on this journey. And I am a real reverend, actually. I performed our friend Hux's wedding, actually. And I've performed a couple. Yeah, I actually am certified with two churches, actually, just to really make sure I've got it all down pat. So yeah, I can legally perform funerals. I actually carry my card on me. It was very useful when a friend was having some severe medical issues and not a person of faith, but really needed someone to talk to. And with the severe medical issues they were having, the only visitor they were allowed was religious counsel. I was able to go and spend time with them in the hospital and try and help comfort them because I was able to flash my badge. And despite them not liking my criteria, they can't say shit about it. So yeah, I could park in the clergy parking spot at the hospital. I can go in and visit with people. It's come in handy more than once. You'd be surprised. One time getting on an airplane, I didn't feel I was. This was just me being a dick. I did not feel like taking my hat and everything off going through TSA, pulled out my Reverend badge and said it was a religious reason that I wasn't taking my hat off, and they just waved me right through. No one was going to argue. So every now and then you can do fun shit like that. It's probably not ethical, but it's fun. So, we've been doing this for 8 weeks. Thank you, everybody who tunes in. It means the world to me that you like this stupid little thing that I do every Sunday morning. So, we will be back next week for our 9th episode. And then we're going to take a 1 week hiatus. The week of the 28th, I will be hosting, it would be the 29th, would be our normal Sunday day. I'm going to be hosting a Mortal Kombat tournament at our favorite pizza shop, Black Lotus Pizza, that we'll be streaming live here on the channel. And with that going on, it's Memorial Day weekend. I just feel like the Sunday sermon is going to get lost in the mix there, as well as I have some new stuff, some new things I want to roll out, some new segments, a new look for the stream and everything that I have just not had the time to implement because I'm working on the sermon throughout the week and the other streams that I do, and of course my real job, and of course spending time with my family. When you add all that shit together, it doesn't leave a whole lot of time to update the stream and implement new things, which is something that I definitely want to do. So we will take a 1 week hiatus, the week of the 28th. We will not, or the 20, it'll be Sunday the 29th. We will not do a stream that day, the Sunday before Memorial Day. We're just going to let you have your holiday weekend. No church that weekend, guys. But I will be working on the updating the stream so that when we come back the first Sunday in June, we're going to bring the noise, new look, new segments. We'll call that season 2, so to speak. And bigger, better, more fun. That's what we're going for. So, one of the things that we were going to do today was a new segment about Reverend Riff's Pantheon of Patrons and Paragons. I'm really excited about that segment. We're kind of considering it a Hall of Fame for opinionated dickheads. And, well, I'm an opinionated dickhead, so I get to create a Hall of Fame for opinionated dickheads. But I really want to integrate that into the new thing, so we're going to hang on that. And we're going to start that. That is going to kick off season 2. So we're going to put that on ice for a couple weeks. If that's the reason you tuned in today, I'm sorry. But trust me, we've got some cool shit this week. So, without further ado, now that our housekeeping items have been taken care of, let's get into why you're here. And why you're here, I believe, is you love some angels, demons, and other mythical bullshit. So, We've talked about a lot of stuff, and this week I think we've got some pretty interesting ones. So let's launch right in, shall we? See, oh, of course my dongle doesn't want to work because why would it do that? Our angel of the week is Gabriel. Gabriel is, to me, he's one of the cooler angels in the Bible because he gets it, and also he has to do some rotten shit. At least in my opinion. We'll talk about that. So, yeah, Gabriel, one of the archangels. He is really. It's kind of funny because everybody that we talked about the Metatron a couple weeks ago. Everybody knows the Metatron, and in Kevin Smith's Dogma, as well as in some other ways people have looked at it, the Metatron is the voice of God. There's really no text to support that. What there is text to support is that if there is a voice of God, if there is a dude that speaks for God, it's Gabriel. Gabriel is the guy that whenever God really needs to let somebody know something, he sends Gabriel. He's kind of like the Hermes of the Bible, if you will. We're going to make a bunch of Greek mythology references today, by the way. So if you're not up on your Greek mythology, I apologize because references are going to be kind of heavy on that today. So, he was an archangel. Archangel may or may not mean jack shit. It may actually be a different kind of angel. It may be a rank. Sometimes when the archangels are described, they sound like seraphim. Other times they sound like cherubim. Other times they don't sound like any specific angel, so we're not really sure. It could just be a rank. The word archangel does not appear in the Old Testament anywhere, and it only appears twice in the New Testament. This is something that I think is very key that a lot of people miss out on. If you look at the old Hebrew text, especially what is the Torah and whatnot, angels really aren't there. Angelic encounters and just angels in general were not a big part of the Old Testament. They didn't really start making appearances until some of the stories that we believe were imported into the Bible from different cultures, mainly during the Babylonian occupation. When the Babylonians came in, they smashed the Israelites and they took them back to Babylon and made them servants there. Well, when they did that, the Babylonian culture seeped into the Jewish culture a lot, and stories of angels and demons kind of worked their way into the Jewish people's, kind of their history and their storytelling. Not common before that. So if you pay attention, a lot of people don't notice it. Angels really aren't in the Old Testament a lot. Yes, the wrestling, but it was never specified that it was an angel. He wrestles a man. Some people have said that man was actually God incarnate. Other have said that it was an angel. That was Jacob. He wrestles the angel until the angel agrees to give him a blessing. At one point, the angel touches him on his hip, and his hip goes lame, but he still holds on to the angel, or kind of heavenly host, as I believe what he's referred to as. And eventually, when he will not let go of the angel goes, "Fine, I will give you a blessing. You're going to be a big deal." And the angel goes away. So yes, that is one of the very few cases. We're going to talk about some of the other few cases today. The archangels, how many? Who are they? That depends on what religion you follow. If you are a Coptic Christian, I think there's 11. If you're Jewish, I think you think there's 7. Christians have anywhere from 5 to 7 to 9, and the names all change. Nobody knows. Nobody knows. Wikipedia says it's an angel, and Wikipedia definitely wouldn't oversimplify. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those stories. I would go with angel, but there's other people that's like, no, he wrestled God himself, or he may have, wrestled. So we're not sure. But yeah, it was probably an angel. All right. Gabriel. He serves in the lore as the chief messenger of heaven. Like I said, if it's important and you need to know it, Gabriel's the one who's coming to tell you. He is often depicted as having a spear in one hand and a mirror. The mirror often has the X on it to signify the mystery of God, because back then mirrors were pretty mysterious shit. So, that works. And also, he reflects on you because, of course, we're made in God's own image. He often shapeshifts into human form as to not fucking terrify people. This cannot be overstated. A lot of the other times when angels appear to people in the Bible, they scare the shit out of them. I mean, a big guy with wings appearing out of nowhere, radiating the glory of God. Yeah, I would think that could be really fucking intense. Gabriel seems to understand humanity and have a compassion for them, that he understands the message is going to get lost if this person is scared shitless. So he tends to appear in human form when he has to, give people a message. Also, people still know he's not human. Apparently, he can only conceal his heavenly beauty so much, and he's often described as just being too damn gorgeous to be a person. So, but he's yet not as terrifying because he just looks like the most beautiful person you've ever seen. So, that's what we end up with there. And, yeah, getting a message from him, it is the equivalent of God sliding into your DMs. Like, if you're talking to Gabriel, you're talking to God. Gabriel doesn't have anything to say to you. What he's saying is he's coming from God. This all tracks out. Your cousin Gabe's handsome. See, we're on point. All right, so this right here, this passage is literally, if you're a modern Christian, this is like the most important passage, one of the most important passages in the entire Bible, and this is Gabriel's big moment. God sent the angel Gabriel to Nazareth, a town in Galilee, to a virgin. She was engaged to marry a man named Joseph from the family of David. Her name was Mary. The angel came to her and said, "Greetings, the Lord has blessed you and is with you." But Mary was very startled by what the angel said and wondered what this greeting might mean. The angel said to her, "Don't be afraid, Mary. God has shown you his grace. Listen, you will become pregnant and give birth to a son, and you will name him Jesus. He will be great and will be called the Son of the Most High." I thought it would be Matt Pike's kid, but the Lord God will give him the throne of King David, his ancestor. He will rule over the people of Jacob forever, and his kingdom will never end. Mary said to the angel, "How will this happen, since I'm a virgin?" The angel said to Mary, "Holy Spirit will come upon you, and the power," I think it'd be come in her, but again, splitting hairs here, "and the power of the Most High will cover you. For this reason the baby will be holy, and will be called the Son of God. Now Elizabeth, your relative, is also pregnant with a son, though she is very old. Everyone thought she could not have a baby, but she's been pregnant for 6 months. God can do anything." Mary said, "I am the servant of the Lord. Let this happen to me as you say." And the angel went away. Now let's think about this for a minute here, folks. I'm sorry, I got a whole lot of beef with that, so it's about to get spicy. So if that bothers you, I apologize. But I got some things to say about this, so let me collect myself a minute. So, God has chosen, we all know the story. Mary gets impregnated by God himself and has Jesus. Let's look at the implication of everything that just what happened there. God picked this virgin, this young girl. Most people put Mary between 12 and 16 at the time of this story. So we've got a young girl, which I get it that, for us, that age seems worse than it did back then. That doesn't make it less worse. It just was more socially acceptable back then. But God decides he's picked this girl. We don't really know why he's picked this girl, but he's picked this girl, and she's going to be the one to have his kid. Notice God didn't come down and say, "Hey, Mary, would you like to have the Son of God?" There was no consent here. I'm not going to use the R word. I'm not trying to be that spicy today, but in absence of consent, what do you call it? Second of all, God didn't even go tell Mary himself. He sends Gabriel to do it. You would think if you're the almighty, all-powerful person and you are going to impregnate this young girl without giving her an option, you've just told her, "You're part of my divine plan now, roll with it," you could at least do that yourself. But no, he sends Gabriel to be like, "Oh, by the way, you're about to get knocked up by God. I hope that doesn't fuck your plans." And, of course, it almost does fuck her plans, where Gabriel has to make a return visit to Joseph and be like, "Dude, she didn't cheat on you. It was God. That totally makes it okay. Don't put her away quietly, which basically means he was going to break off the betrothal and possibly have her killed by stoning for getting pregnant out of wedlock. Yay! So, kind of a dick move on God's part there. I'm not going to justify this, like, oh, he's God. He doesn't know. Consent is consent, people. Get consent. Don't just go knocking up, 14-year-old girls and having your angel homie go tell them to do it. Yeah, it almost sounds like God, we've been talking about all these flawed guys that work for the guy, and, maybe the problems in this company goes all the way to the top. Just saying. My third issue with that story is there someone that was mentioned in that story that never gets mentioned again that I think we're missing something really cool. As he mentioned in the text, he says, well, nobody thought Elizabeth could get pregnant because I believe Elizabeth is Mary's cousin. It's like, hey, nobody thought your old ass cousin could get married or get pregnant, and look, she did. God can do anything. So therefore, it's almost like he's hinting that God knocked that chick up too, which, if so, that would make that baby divine as well. Where's that fucking baby? Why do we never hear about this cat again? Again, it almost, so either, because he kind of takes credit for it. Jesus versus his second cousin for the biblical throwdown. This is what I'm saying. The dude's never mentioning it. We don't even know what happens. But it sure seemed to me really... It's Brian, yes. But it seems like, we're kind of missing an important story because Gabriel definitely takes credit for that one on God's behalf. Like, hey, God can do anything. Look, she got pregnant and she's old. So isn't that amazing? And, I'm just saying, it seems kind of shady. So that is one of Gabriel's big cameos in the Bible. Another appearance that is believed to have been Gabriel, while not necessarily naming him by name, is one of my favorite Bible stories. I've always thought it was pretty slick. I came to find out it's probably not really a Bible story. That's what makes it neat. This story is in the book of Daniel, and it's interesting in many ways. One of them being that it's the only chapter in the book of Daniel that doesn't involve Daniel. He's nowhere to be found in this story. And the book of Daniel is incredibly old. We think it is one of the older texts written. And it is believed that this story was more of a tale that went around in the Babylonian and Israelite camps and kind of got shoehorned into the Bible because it's a cool story. So I'm all for it, but most historians think that this story it's basically a parable. It didn't really happen, which, I know we have a lot of that in the Bible, but this one, that it really didn't happen, and that it doesn't have anything, it's really an outlier in the book of Daniel. It doesn't fit. It's just this weird one-off story. Nobody tells us why Daniel's not in the story, because he's kind of the star of the show the rest of that book. But it's pretty interesting. So, the story takes place in Babylon. The Israelites are there. They're captives of the Babylonian king Nebuchadnezzar II. He's kind of a big deal. He's running shit. And he decides that people do not know just how cool he is. And so he needs to make sure everybody knows how fucking cool he is. So he builds a giant ass golden statue of himself. And when I say giant ass, I mean giant ass. As in 60 cubits, which we know is 90 feet, and 6 cubits, or 9 feet, wide. And he places it in a plane, and whenever music is played, everybody is supposed to turn and prostrate themselves in front of the statue. Doesn't matter what time. Whenever. There's no warning, just you hear music playing, you hit the deck and bow to this giant ass statue of Nebuchadnezzar, the destroyer of nations. And he's not real keen on you not listening to this. He has a giant ass furnace. Most people with the story, why would he have a giant ass furnace? Well, he had to smelt all that gold to build the 90-foot tall statue somewhere. So, yeah. If you're this dude, if you're this cool and you have enough gold to build a 90-foot by 9-foot statue of yourself, Fuck, I'm not telling you you can't do it. Like, rappers have nothing on this guy. No one's ever going to touch this dude's bling. His bling was that big. No one's touching this shit. So, you know, of course my dongle mocks me. So, let's get into the text here. This is just such a cool story. So, at the time, some astrologers came forward to denounce the Jews. Shitting on the Jews. It's kind of a classic theme, even in their own book. They said to King Nebuchadnezzar, "May the king live forever. Your majesty has issued a decree that everyone who hears the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, pipe, and all kinds of music must fall down and worship the image of gold, and that whoever does not fall down will be thrown into a blazing furnace. But there are some Jews whom you have set over your affairs of the province." These guys, again, what's really going on here? We've got professional jealousy, folks. And these Jews have been set over your province of Babylon, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who pay no attention to you, your majesty. They neither serve your gods nor worship the image of gold you have set up. Nebuchadnezzar is heated. So, he's furious with rage. Nebuchadnezzar summons Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, so that these men were brought before the king. And Nebuchadnezzar said to them, "Is it true, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that you do not serve my gods or worship the image of gold I have set up? Now when you hear the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, pipe, and all kinds of music, if you are ready to fall down and worship the image I made, very good. But if you do not worship it, you will be thrown immediately into a blazing furnace. Then what god will be able to rescue you from my hand?" Uh-oh. He's challenging God. That really doesn't work out. Oh yeah, infinite black metal stuff here. Infinite. Just wait, the story keeps getting better. And so Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego replied to him. They said, "King Nebuchadnezzar, we do not need to defend ourselves before you in this matter. This is fucking baller here. If we are thrown into the blazing furnace, the God we serve is able to deliver us from it, and he will deliver us from your majesty's hand. But even if he doesn't, we want you to know, your majesty, that we will not serve your gods or worship the image of gold you have set up." I love this part because they don't guarantee that God's going to bail them out. They're basically saying, hey, if he bails us out, dope. If not, we die, but fuck you. We're not doing what you said. That takes nuts. Then Nebuchadnezzar was furious with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and his attitude toward them changed. Remember, these guys were in charge of some stuff beforehand. It's believed that the story goes that they were probably like basically the equivalent of like mayors of like towns almost for him, and they were running finances. They had it pretty good for people in captivity. But now he's pissed. And so he ordered the furnace heated 7 times hotter than usual, and commanded some of the strongest soldiers in his army to tie up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and throw them into the blazing furnace. So these men, wearing their robes, trousers, turbans, and other clothes, were bound and thrown into the blazing furnace. The king's command was so urgent, and the furnace so hot, that the flames of the fire killed the soldiers who took Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and these 3 men, firmly tied, fell into the blazing furnace. Then King Nebuchadnezzar leaped to his feet in amazement and asked his advisors, "Weren't there 3 men that we tied up and threw into the fire?" So, we're setting the scene here. This furnace is so hot, and when you open the door, the guys who were trying to throw the people in were consumed by the fire. There's no mention of how they actually got the guys in the fire. We're going to assume that these dudes were so baller they walked right in. But yes, OSHA definitely getting a phone call here. Somebody's in trouble. Then they replied, "Certainly, your majesty." And he said, "Look, I see 4 men walking around in the fire." Again, no word as to how he can get close enough to the fire to look in to see how many people are in there when the fire is supposedly so hot that you can't even stand next to it without getting consumed. Shh, details. Said, Nebuchadnezzar then approached the opening of the blazing furnace that totally was not leaping out and burning him like the people it was a few minutes earlier, and said, "Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, servants of the Most High God, come out, come here." So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego came out of the fire. I'd like to believe that they walked out in slow motion. I really think that had to have happened. And the satraps, prefects, governors, and royal advisors crowded around them. They saw that the fire had not harmed their bodies, nor was a hair of their heads singed. Their robes were not scorched, and there was no smell of fire on them. Then Nebuchadnezzar said, "Praise be to the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who has sent his angel to rescue his servants. They trusted in him and defied the king's command and were willing to give up their lives rather than serve or worship any god except their own. Therefore, I decree that the people of any nation or language who say anything against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego be cut into pieces and their houses be turned into piles of rubble. For no other god can save in this way. Then the king promoted Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the province of Babylon. Aside from the fact that there's no record ever of the Babylonians switching religions, so again, this story probably didn't happen, but come on, that's pretty baller. And many theologians believe that that was Gabriel walking around in the fire with them, making sure everything was cool so that they did not get killed because of their faithfulness to God. As I said, this story is a story that there are variations of it in Babylonian culture, basically pitting one god against the other. And so it's not surprising that the Hebrews picked up on it and converted it to their own story. And like I said, it's one of my favorite Bible stories, so I've always liked the fiery furnace. Also, in the original text, one of the instruments that he keeps repeating, that if you hear this instrument, you should bow to my statue, is bagpipes. And I love the idea of pipers in ancient Babylon because that just cracks me up. So now we move on to our demon of the week. And our demon of the week is Azazel. If you've ever watched the movie that has aged really poorly, Fallen, Denzel Washington, John Goodman, it's aged poorly, but the main demon in that is Azazel. I don't know why they picked Azazel because he doesn't really fit the demon that they picked. I think they just thought it was a dope name because it doesn't really work. But Azazel is our demon of the week. He is a goat demon. And that text comes straight from the Bible for a very good reason. He also, I told you we were going to mention mythology a lot today. He has a parallel. Many people compare him to Prometheus. Well, he's like bad guy Prometheus. Black Phillip, yep, this is where the goat thing comes from, Bale. All that whole goats shit with demons and Satan. Boom, folks, we're about to dive in. So, in Leviticus, God is explaining to people how they're supposed to do sacrifices. And everybody, again, I say everybody generalizing, I assume that most people know, we've all heard about you sacrifice a lamb at the altar. That's what you do. We've all heard that. We know that one. But this is a lesser known part of that story. The scapegoat. We've all used that word, right? We've all heard called someone a scapegoat. Well, this is where it comes from. He shall present the goat chosen by lot. It means it's random. They bring out two goats. They randomly choose one. I don't know if they roll dice, whatever the case. And sacrifice it as a sin offering. But the goat chosen by lot as the scapegoat shall be presented alive before the Lord to make atonement by sending it into the wilderness as the scapegoat. Then he is to lay both hands on the head of the live goat and confess over it all the iniquities and rebellious acts of the Israelites in regard to all their sins. We're still going, Logger. Welcome. He is to put them on the goat's head and send it away into the wilderness by the hand of a man appointed for the task. The goat will carry on itself all their iniquities into a solitary place, and the man will release it into the wilderness to Azazel. That part was taken out. In the old text, that's what it says. It will be released into the wilderness to Azazel. That text now, it makes it seem like God is kind of working hand in hand with this demon, and that like he's got a part of it. So obviously that text was not favored, so it was dropped, and it was just releasing it into the wilderness. But yet, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time every Sunday. And so you've got this idea that two goats are brought. One goat is sacrificed for their sins, but then the other goat, all of the sin is sort of put on him, and that goat is sent to wander into the wilderness to find Azazel, and that goat is the scapegoat. It carries with it all of the sin. That goat didn't commit any of those sins. We all did. But those sins are now put on the goat, and the goat carries the burden of those sins. That is where our term scapegoat comes from. The reason that's why Azazel is a goat demon, and the idea is that the reason Azazel is kind of hinted at with Prometheus is right here. Chained to the jagged rocks in Ha in utter darkness. This is what's going to happen to Azazel. This is all from the book of Enoch, mind you. That's why I don't have my normal text up here, is that this is just cribbed from the book of Enoch, our buddy Enoch, who wrote the wildest shit. Hands and feet like a man, and on his back 6 wings on the right and 6 on the left. That doesn't sound like a demon. This sounds like an angel. And the whole earth has been corrupted through the works that were taught by Azazel to ascribe him all sin. That is the idea of Azazel. Azazel is the one that taught humanity to sin. I don't know if anybody ever saw the kind of rough movie with Christopher Walken, The Prophecy. And in that, he is an angel who hates humanity because God loves humanity. And it makes him mad that humanity, with all their flaws, that God loves them and that they can be redeemed, whereas angels are not loved by God. Well, God loves them, but they have no margin for error. Well, that really drives them nuts. Azazel is so pissed. There is a lot of thought that Azazel later in other biblical texts is described as serpent-like. Why is that important? Well, because there are many people that believe that Azazel is actually who showed up at the Garden of Eden and was whispering sweet nothings into Adam and Eve's ears. That was Azazel, not the devil. As we see right here, to him ascribe all sin. Original sin is Azazel's fault. Much like Prometheus gave the gift of fire to humanity and he was punished for it, so did Azazel convince humanity to disobey God, and therefore all sin that ever happens ever is Azazel's fault. So, also, another thing that we've learned about Azazel is, and if you've seen the movie Fallen, you get this picture. If you don't, I'm sorry. He taught humans the forbidden knowledge. It is also believed that he led the angels that produced the Nephilim. That it was Azazel who lusted after the daughters of man and came down and interbred with them. So he kind of hits a whole bunch of highlight reel stuff here. He's the guy that introduced sin. The reference is the Nephilim. The Nephilim are believed to have been the offspring of angels and angelic beings that mated with human women. They're mentioned in the Bible around the time of Noah, and that God despised them because they were an abomination, because, humans weren't supposed to be breeding with angels. God was kind of pissed about that. Yeah, that's also probably Azazel's fault. So he created all sin. He banged a bunch of human chicks that led to kids, and eventually God flooded the earth. Azazel's kind of a bad dude. But he is the scapegoat. He is the reason we have that phrase, and he is a goat demon who the Bible says will be punished in hell as thoroughly as anybody. Seems like God gets pissed a lot. You could not be more accurate with that. He's just generally angry most of the books in the Bible. He's kind of pissed off about something. So now we move on to our mythical bullshit of the week. This one's going to be a doozy, folks. I hope you're ready for this one. This week we're going to talk about Behemoth. Last week, of course, we did Behemoth's sister, Leviathan. And we're sticking with the ridiculous black metal band themes. It's our favorite Polish band, Behemoth. There they are right there. This is the text from Job that mentions Behemoth. And it drives me nuts because Christians love to take this text and run with the most stupid anti-science non-shit out of it. Let's dive in so that I can say some offensive things. Look at Behemoth, which I made along with you, and which feeds on grass like an ox. What strength it has in its loins, what power in the muscles of its belly. Its tail sways like a cedar, the sinews of its thighs are close-knit. Its bones are tubes of bronze, its limbs like rods of iron. It ranks amongst the works of God, yet its maker can approach it with his sword. The hills bring it their produce, and the wild animals play nearby. Under the lotus plants it lies, hidden among the reeds in the marsh. The lotuses conceal it in their shadow, while poplars by the streams surround it. A raging river does not alarm it. It is secure. Through the Jordan should surge against its mouth. Can anyone capture it by the eyes, or trap it and pierce its nose? Strong loins. So, this description of this animal, right here, if you're a Christian who hates science, and you hate people who say things like evolution, even though it obviously happened, this passage right here is the entire crux of the argument that Christians and dinosaurs totally lived at the same time. It's nonsense, but that's what they're going with. I would say it was a crocodile too, Bale, except for it is a herbivore, which stated that it feeds on grass like an ox. So I don't know any crocodiles that eat herbs. So that's a good one. Other people have said, oh, it's an elephant. Have you ever thought an elephant's tail swayed like a cedar? Maybe you could go that it's the trunk of the elephant he's referring to, and, the tail is a mistranslation. The hippo is another one that is very commonly thought, but again, you would not say that the hippo's tail sways like a cedar. And so, Christians go with this. It can't be a hippo. It can't be an elephant. Clearly, it's a dinosaur. That they jump right to that one. That it clearly is a dinosaur. It's not a fucking dinosaur. It's not a dinosaur. It's just not. Because let's go back to the text again. Under the lotus plants it lies. How deep is this fucking water that a dinosaur is underneath the lotus blossoms in it? All of a sudden, that sounds fucking ridiculous, doesn't it? And it's hidden among the reeds in the marsh. Does anybody remember the part when they learned about dinosaurs, about how good they were at hiding? If it's a brachiosaurus, this fucking thing is like 100 and some feet tall. It's not hiding anywhere. You don't hide when you're 100 feet tall. You don't have to hide. In later texts, they talk about how the animals play around it because they know that they don't have to fear it because it's an herbivore. And they talk about how the animals, if they get out of line, it roars and it scares the animals back into behaving. I have no fucking idea what that means because it doesn't mean anything. It was an invention of the poet who wrote Job. This is not a real animal. It's not a real animal. This is the same book that mentions Leviathan. So unless you're willing to believe that there were water dragons that were running amok, there probably wasn't a behemoth either. It's a metaphor. It is balanced to the chaos monster that is Leviathan. Leviathan is the monster of chaos in the ocean. Behemoth lives on the land and creates a utopian area where all the animals get along. It's supposed to be yin and yang. That's all it is. It's divine balance. It is not a dinosaur. I mean, just looking at the text, unless you believe that this giant-ass dinosaur with tails like a cedar can also slip underneath the water and be hidden by the lotus blossoms, because lotus blossoms don't grow in the middle of the fucking ocean. They grow in small ponds. So it's a giant-ass dinosaur that can slip underneath ponds. Sure. There's not dinosaurs in the Bible. There's not dinosaurs in the Bible. Stop saying there's dinosaurs in the Bible. I can't stress that enough. People and dinosaurs did not live at the same time. It just didn't happen. But this text is any Christian who tells you the earth is only 6,000 years old and you ask them, what about dinosaur bones? This is the text they're going to hit you with. Yeah, I heard you got a museum in Kentucky that's got that. Somebody built an ark, too. Even though it's not seaworthy, and when you point the physics of that out to them, they get real upset. Don't worry, we're going to do that on stream with actual math, because I'm a jerk. But we're not there yet. That's season 2. Got to keep something for you. So now we've moved on to the main event. Our flawed hero of the day. And Logger, I hope I don't trigger you too much with this one. I know you're a fan of the Philistines. The Philistines are about to have a rough go with our stories today. Does not come well. Ken Ham's gonna come lay hands. I will please. Yeah. Oh, you want to tear down of the Ark, Bale? That's season 2. It's coming. Believe me, buddy. I want to try to present the math in a digestible a way as possible for people. Oh no, I just mean they're gonna take some L's here. They're gonna get beat up, and I know you're a fan, so they're gonna take some shots here. Samson, he's kind of like the Bible's Hercules. He does a bunch of ridiculous stuff, has magical super strength, and has a penchant for foreign women that continues to get him in trouble. That is the underlying subtext of the book of Samson, like much of the Old Testament and the New Testament. Misogyny. Yeah, Samson is pretty much Hercules, dude. Just wait. But yeah, misogyny. This is all, you know, it's all the woman's fault. Even though it's actually all Samson's fault, but he blames everybody else. Samson is a whining, put upon bitch. He just whines all the time and constantly is his own worst enemy. The guy is a dick. Let's dive in. So, Samson went down to Timnah, and at Timnah, well, hold on. I apologize. I jumped the gun a little bit there. So, Samson has super strength. The source of Samson's super strength is his pact with God, his Nazarene pact, which states, it's a Nazarite pact. It states that he will never cut his hair, that he will always worship God, and that he will not mingle with foreign women. Those are the 3 rules. Those are not 3 real difficult rules to follow, you would think. Samson does not, follow these rules at all. So Samson went down to Timnah, and saw one of the daughters of the Philistines. And he came up and told his father and mother, I saw one of the daughters of the Philistines at Timnah. Now go get her for me as my wife. Okay. Hey, thanks for the follow there. Appreciate it, Nickum. But his father and mother said to him, Is there not a woman amongst the daughters of your kinsmen or amongst all of our people that you must go take a wife from the uncircumcised Philistines? Remember that circumcision is, of course, the symbol that you're part of God. And Samson said to his father, Get her for me, for she is right in my eyes. She looks good, I'm in. He's already forgotten all about the whole not supposed to be with foreigners thing. His father and mother did not know what it was of the Lord, and that he sought an occasion for assailing the Philistines. At that time, the Philistines had dominion over Israel. So basically, what we're saying here is that God is using Samson's lust for God's own personal gain. God wants an excuse for Samson to kick the Philistines' ass, so he decides that having him fall in love with a girl, even though this is breaking the covenant that God told him to adhere to, it hints here that God wanted him to do this. So yes, this would be entrapment. God told him, don't mess with foreign women. Then God made him be attracted to a foreign woman so that he would mess with the foreign woman, so that it would start an international incident which would involve a lot of people getting killed. Yes, that is what you read there. It's fucked up. Before sunset, okay, so then let me jump out of the thing here because we got to tell a little story. So, Samson doesn't listen. Samson marries her. At the wedding, Samson invites the Philistines there because he's now related to them. And he decides, that, hey, we should all get along. Let's all come together at the wedding. So they're at the wedding, and Samson is bragging about how cool he is. And he says, hey, I got a riddle. I'm going to give you guys this riddle. And if you can solve this riddle in a week, I will owe you 30 garments and 30 reams of fabric, which fabric was very expensive at the time. So this is a big wager. And the riddle that Samson gives them is out of the eater something sweet to eat. I don't think that's a very good riddle, but Samson is all bronze, no brain here. So the text says that God wanted him to fall in love with her. That's the text. I believe in free will too, Logger, but that's the text. So, see, his father and mother did not know that it was of the Lord. So, he gives them this riddle. They can't figure it out. They, on the Philistines, are pissed because they do not want to pay this guy all this, all these valuable items because they can't figure out this thing. So they start pressuring his wife. And they're like, hey, you got to tell us, what was the deal? What's the riddle? She's like, I don't know. So she starts pestering Samson. What was the riddle? What was the riddle? He's like, I'm not going to tell you. I haven't even told my parents. Why would I tell you? Finally, she whines. It's hinted at that she refuses to sleep with him unless he tells her. So he says, fine. And he tells her, what I was talking about was I found the lion's skull that had a honeycomb growing in it. So she tells them, they come back and they say to Samson, we got it figured out, dude. We figured out your story. And Samson, being the evolved man he is, takes it very, very well. They said, before sunset of the seventh day, the men of the town said to him, what is sweeter than honey? What is stronger than a lion? And Samson said to them, if you had not plowed with my heifer, you would not have solved my riddle. That's right. He referred to his wife as a heifer and basically said, if you wouldn't have figured it out if it hadn't been for her. That, notwithstanding, they figured it out. Now Samson owes them a bunch of stuff. Well, where is Samson going to get that stuff? He doesn't have that kind of money. So Samson goes to a Philistine town and brutally murders 30 people, strips the bodies, and takes the garments back and pays his debt that way, then storms off and leaves his wife there because he's pissed. Again, stand-up guy here. Lost the bet, has to pay the bet, murders 30 people to pay the bet. This is supposed to be the hero in the story, ladies and gentlemen. This is our hero. So, after that, he's left his wife with her parents now. He's pissed off. Well, as you know, in the ancient biblical times, she would now be tainted goods because she clearly wasn't a virgin anymore because she had been with Samson. Oh, man, we got another follow. Thank you, Grizz. So, she's tainted goods. What's Samson going to do here? Or Samson, he starts to soften. Maybe he just gets back to horny jail. Whatever the case, Samson gets a goat, goes back to his wife's place, and goes back to his wife's, in her parents' house, and is like, hey, I'm sorry. And the Spirit of the Lord came upon him. He killed the men who he gave the clothes. He returned to his father's house, and his wife was given to one of the men who accompanied him. Yeah, basically, they were like, oh, we just figured you didn't want her anymore, so we gave her to your buddy. So she's married to him now. You can't be with her anymore. That, of course, does not go over well with Samson. He's, again, pissed. So he responds in a very mature way. Here we are. Later on at the time of the wheat harvest, Samson took a young goat, went to visit his wife. I went to go with my wife in her room. He basically wants to sleep with his wife. But her father would not let him and said, I was sure that you thoroughly hated her. I have given her to one of the men who accompanied you. Is not her younger sister more beautiful than she? Please take her instead. Because women are nothing but currency at this point in history, as sad as that is. And also, he's terrified of the giant muscly rage monster whose wife he gave away. It is quite possibly the most inefficient way of getting cloth. He was a warrior. He had already brutally killed a whole lot of people. And Logger, he's about to go on a massive killing spree. So Samson said to them, this time I will be blameless in doing harm to the Philistines. So he's sort of admitting that brutally murdering 30 people to steal their clothes was kind of unprovoked, seeing as he's the one that set up the bet that he lost, and then he went and killed people to pay the bet. And so, but now he's saying, because they gave my wife, right, blameless, Nickum, he's blameless in all this. It's totally not his fault that he stormed off and left his wife, leaving the father to assume he had to find someone who would take her and got one of Samson's buddies to it. No. This is someone else's fault. Key theme with Samson. Everything is always someone else's fault with this guy. We've all met this dude. We have definitely met this dude. So, Samson went out and caught 300 foxes, and he took torches, turned the foxes tail to tail, and fastened a torch between each pair of tails. Then he lit the torches and released the foxes into the standing grain of the Philistines, burning up the piles of grain and the standing grain, as well as the vineyards and olive groves. Who did this? The Philistines demanded. It was Samson, the son-in-law of the Timonite, they were told, for his wife was given to his companion. So the Philistines went up and burned her and her father to death. Yes. Again, a completely reasonable reaction is to go catch 300 foxes and then tie them tail to tail 150 times, apparently, put a torch in each one of their tails, and release them on the grain stores and through the olive groves. This is basically freaking ecological warfare. He destroys the fields, their grain stores, their olive groves. Of course, as many people know, olive oil was like one of the currencies back then. So he literally like burned down a bank. This is bad. This is his response to them finding a wife for the woman that he abandoned because they didn't hold on to her in case he decided he wasn't abandoning her. That is, again, this guy is a dick. So, and what happens? His wife and his father-in-law get burned to death as response for everybody else's shit getting burned. There's really not a lot of good guys in these stories, but this one seems really fucked up to me. So, now that that's happened, we move on with our Samson story. So that has happened, and Samson then decides, people are pissed at me. He goes to a place called Etam. There's a cave there, and he hides out in the cave. All the people of Judah, the tribe that he was from, come to him, and they're like, Samson, the Philistines are pissed. They are really mad. They want your ass for this. And he's like, are you guys going to try to kill me? They're like, no, we can't do that. You're one of us, but dude, they're mad and they're raining hell down on us because of your behavior. You got to help us out here. And Samson goes, promise me you won't try to kill me yourselves and I'll turn myself in. And so they said, yeah, we're not going to do it. We just want to tie you up and give you to the Philistines because, dude, they're making our life miserable. So Samson goes, cool. They go get some rope. They tie Samson up. And they take him to the Philistines. On the way to the Philistines, right before they get there, the Philistine army is apparently garrisoned. They're ready to take, control of Samson. Samson snaps the ropes off and goes full on Shamgar. I mean full Shamgar. He picks up the jawbone of a donkey that was a dead donkey that was laying on the side of the road. And with that donkey jawbone, Samson proceeds to kill 1,000 Philistines. He kills 1,000 people. He whips some ass with the ass's jawbone. He takes the ass, whoops some ass. It's slaughter. There's bodies stacked. Then Samson makes jokes about, that he slayed 1,000 men with the jawbone of an ass. I hope they know they should fear me. Yeah, he take out a whole phalanx with a donkey jawbone. It's re-goddamn ridiculous. So, after that, he heads back out because if he wasn't a wanted man before, he's really a wanted man now. So, he goes out. Then Samson plays some practical jokes. There's a story, I didn't put it all in here today, but there's men that wait by a gate. And they believe that Samson is going to have to pass through this gate, so they wait by the gate. Well, one night they fall asleep, and Samson, goes down and picks up the gate and moves the gate to the top of a hill. This story serves no purpose other than it shows that Samson thinks he's hilarious and also has big muscles because he's moving gates around. But anyway, so after that nonsense, Samson once again falls for a foreign woman. This time the woman is named Delilah. We've all heard her name. Most everybody knows this story. Samson is infatuated with Delilah. Again, even though he is totally not supposed to be with foreign women, He's into her. And apparently it wasn't God's doing this time, because God gets mad about this one. So, he's hanging with Delilah. He's really into her. And she keeps asking him, well, before that, so the Philistines are like, we got to get rid of this fucking guy. This guy's a pain in the ass. So they come to Delilah and they're like, hey, that, Muscles McLarge Huge that's really into you, we will pay you to help us figure out how we kick this dude's ass. If they had dueled, maybe the Philistines would have been saved. I am into this. Hercules versus Samson. Fucking get me a fighting game. I need a Bible fighting game. So they go to her and they offer her 1,100 shekels of silver to betray Samson. A shekel at the time, approximately 9 grams, give or take. She was offered 21.8 pounds of silver. Today, that would be the monetary equivalent of around $211,000. So they offered her some big bucks to get rid of this guy. So she takes the money. I don't blame her. So she starts asking Samson, hey, Samson, Sammy, baby, how is it that you're so buff? How do you do this? And he's like, actually, I have a weakness. I have a kryptonite. Tie me up with fresh bowstrings from bows that have never been shot. I'm powerless. So she goes and tells the Philistines. Then she lures him to sleep. She ties him up with the bowstrings. Then she shouts out, Samson, the Philistines are here. He jumps up, snaps the bowstrings, and brutally kills a bunch of Philistines. Was she a patriot? I guess you could say she was. She got paid for it, too. She's really working it out here. That's an interesting take on it, Logger. I like it. So, Samson is clearly also a big dummy. Because what happened? He just told this one chick, oh, if you tie me up with bowstrings, you can defeat me. Then that scenario happens. Obviously, he was lying because he beats up and kills a bunch of Philistines. Yet, he either is too stupid to suspect her, or that nookie was so good he is willing to ignore the fact that she clearly just tried to betray him because he goes back to her. And instead, she plays the sad card and goes, you asshole. You told me that, you lied to me. You clearly don't love me because you won't tell me how to defeat you. So this dipshit lies again because, look, she's apparently got that good. So he says, oh, no, actually, it's fresh rope. You got to use fresh rope that's never been used for anything before. I'm sorry, I misspoke. You don't need a crystal ball to tell what happens here. She ties him up with fresh rope. The next time he falls asleep, she yells, Samson, the Philistines are here. The Philistines show up. Samson snaps the rope and whoops some ass. And because the number 3 is everyone's favorite number in the Old Testament, this thing happens 3 fucking times. So a third time, she's like, you asshole, you told me that was how. And again, dipshit here doesn't catch on to what's going on, or again, he is just so into this chick that even though she keeps trying to kill him, he just can't say no. So he goes, oh no, actually, you got to take my hair and you got to put it in this special braid. And if you put it in a braid and you braid it together, the body count, it's well over 1,000. We're at 1,030 that we know about, and then there's other times that it's mentioned, and then he's about to add to that absurdly. So, once again, she ties his hair in the braid. She puts the pin through. Samson, the Philistines are upon us. You know what happens. He jumps up. He's still super powered. And he rips through another group of Philistines. We don't know how many people he's killed in this, but it's getting ridiculous. I like to think that, Delilah's bedroom is just covered in blood and body parts and just constantly smells like an abattoir because people just keep trying to kill Samson and it keeps not working. So finally, she basically tells Samson, I'm done. You're not getting any of this pussy until you tell me how to fucking defeat you. You are such a liar. You keep lying to me. You've lied to me 3 times. So Samson finally, it says that she drives him nuts. She nags him and nags him about this until he finally says, okay, it's the hair. I've never cut my hair. If my hair were cut, I would not be super powered. She lures Samson to sleep. She cuts his hair. Samson, Samson, the Philistines are upon you. They rush in. Samson jumps up. He did do it all for the nookie. Samson jumps up, and he's not superpowered anymore. He takes the L. And the Philistines get some payback. They beat the shit out of him, and they gouge his eyes out. Then they take his bald, blind ass down to the prison, and they chain him to a millstone and make him push the millstone to grind grain. And they have a party. A big party to celebrate. They have whooped Samson's ass. They finally did it. Delilah came through. Samson has been defeated. So Samson is in the dungeon. He's pushing the grain. And his hair is starting to grow back. And apparently, nobody took the time to think to recut this dude's hair. Serious flaw in the story here. But you decided they were not Mycenaean Greeks. So Samson is pushing the mill. His hair's growing. He's blind. And he finally has been humbled. He says to God, God, if you could let me get revenge for my eyes, I would, really appreciate it. Again, he still is completely missing that he is the cause of literally all of his own problems. I think that's the real thing to take away from this here, is that Samson's blindness is way more than physical. It is definitely spiritual. Samson is the cause of all of his own problems. Yet he never once realizes that he is the cause of all his own problems. It's always somebody else's fault with this guy. So the Philistines, they're having this giant party in the temple of Dagon. Dagon was a big god for them. They're having a party in his temple. And as we have talked about in some of our earlier stories, you partied on the roof as well. So this temple is packed to the gills with people having a party. There's over 3,000 people on the roof alone, it's stated in the text. So there's a big-ass roof. They're having a hell of a party. Everybody is partying. Somebody says, hey, go get that asshole Samson. Let's bring him here and let's make fun of him. This will be awesome. So they go get Samson. They bring him in. And he says to this slave who's leading him, he goes, hey, can you take me to the pillars that are the main support pillars of the building? I need to rest. He takes Samson to those pillars. They chain Samson up there. He's blind. They're laughing at him. It's a big joke. Samson, this says the Spirit of God filled him one more time. And Samson says, fuck this shit. And he goes kamikaze. Samson pushes the pillars out. And the whole... Yeah. Samson pushes the pillars out and the whole temple collapses, killing Samson and everyone else. And it actually states in the biblical text that Samson killed more people that day than he had in his whole life. So Samson's body count ends up somewhere around 5,000 people or so, because this guy is clearly a monster. But yeah, the Philistines all die, and that's the end of the Samson story. So yeah, he killed everybody there, including apparently the guy that helped him by taking him to the strategically right pillars, and everyone dies. Yeah, suicide move, generally frowned upon by God, right? These are all the questions we have for the Samson story. And again, I think it's important that you look at when Samson asked God to help him one last time. He doesn't say, let me do this so that I can free the Israelite people. That's not what he's saying. He's not saying, let me do this because the Philistines are wicked and they deserve your judgment. No, that's not what he says. He's like, hey, they poked out my eyes, so I want payback. So Samson never really gets it. He's just like it's all about Samson. He might be one of the most selfish characters in Bible history. And yet, what do many modern Christians take from this story? That Delilah is somehow the bad guy, which, as our friend Logger here pointed out, if anything, she's a patriot. She was trying to stop this guy that was brutally slaughtering her people, sometimes for no good reason, over a fucking bet that he lost because he was too stupid to not tell his wife the answer. So, many people think the stories of Samson are actually more cautionary tales about the Hebrews staying away from other people, and that this is what happens when you get mixed up with people who aren't Jews. You know, you get your eyes gouged out and you have to push a temple down on top of yourself. So, but maybe the real crux of this story should be, don't fucking be led around by your dick, which is the same thing that the David story was. So, again, it is always amazing to me how we take these biblical stories that very clearly have one idea, maybe don't be a horn dog who just sleeps with anything that moves and lets women manipulate you for the puss. And maybe, just maybe, try, using your head and sticking to the rules. But yet, this story also has the whole contradiction that apparently God wanted him to break the rules to create a reason for aggression, which also means that maybe the moral of the story is that you can't trust God. So, I don't know what the moral of this story is, but I do know that it's batshit crazy and it's a lot of fun. The David story, yes, the David story would have been later on in biblical times. We did it, is it last week or 2 weeks ago we did it? But yeah, it would have occurred after this, when Israel had, at that point, cast off the shackles of the Philistines and created their own empire. And yet, they still couldn't stop going to horny jail. I don't know. This story, there's so much to unpack there about, basically, Samson is a big dummy. Samson is the official Mimbo of the Bible. Lots of brawn, no brains at all. So, again, most biblical people will pin Samson as a hero. I don't know how you could read this story and really find anything heroic about him. He more just seems like an asshole who goes around bullying people. Yes, David was the guy that supposedly killed Goliath, which that's a whole nother story that's kind of messed up because, at best, if you read the text, Goliath was probably basically crippled, almost surely blind, and really, he was a big guy, but he was a big guy affected with gigantism and all of the pitfalls that come with it. He was not this big, scary guy. He was more like a mascot. And, yeah, they sent him to fight the little kid, and he took a stone to the head and then got his head chopped off. But, yeah. Maybe we'll do the David and Goliath story one day, and we'll talk about all the implications of the fact that Goliath was barely standing. Yeah, he was an easy target. And, yeah, that he was probably blind. He was almost assuredly the product of ridiculous amounts of inbreeding. And we also mentioned Goliath had a bunch of brothers. Nobody ever mentions if his brothers ever went for revenge. That would have been a good movie, the brothers of Goliath. But that's for another time. So thank you all for being here this week. I greatly appreciate it. I love it when everybody stops by. We'll be back next week, and then as I stated, on the 29th, we're taking a 1-week hiatus so that I can revamp the look and the design and make it a little more aesthetically pleasing, I think, as well as implement some new segments that we're going to do. So, like I said, we'll be here next week, 10 a.m. Eastern Time, and then the following week we will take a 1-week break, and then we'll be back bold as life and better than ever. So, thank you so much for everybody being here. I love it. Thanks for engaging in the chat. If you were just lurking, thanks for that too. I hope everybody has a great Sunday. Enjoy your day. The weather here in Pittsburgh is lovely. I hope it's lovely wherever you are too. And I'm going to grill some burgers and try not to be a dick like Samson. So you should try to not be a dick like Samson too. And yeah, have a great one, everybody. Let's see if any of our friends are online that we would maybe. Is Bale live? Let's go bother him, shall we? So bear with me 1 second, folks, and we're gonna go raid our buddy Lord Bale. If my old ass can figure out how to work the Twitch, because I'm kind of an old man. But if I can figure this out, we're gonna go raid Lord Bale because we love Lord Bale. So let's see. But thanks everybody for being here, and again, join the Discord, please, if you already haven't, and if you do, and if you join the Discord, which I hope you do, feel free to thanks for being here, Turbo Duder. Love having everybody here. If you're in the Discord, please throw in some topics you want to hear. I am pulling all this stuff off the top of my head. I don't know what you guys want to know about because I don't know what you already know about. So please feel free. Tell me what you want to know about. I will speak on it. This is a democracy. It is your sermon. I'm just the medium. So we're going to go raid our buddy Bale now. Thanks everybody for being here. I love you all. And we'll see you next week.